You're right.
Trey Lance,
Let's go.
workout videos. We've got another one. He's throwing the ball, and here come the takes. They're coming in left, right, and center. His legs too straight. His arms too bent. His head's too low. People are breaking this thing down, and I'm pointing my finger at you, Mr. Cohn. You are breaking this thing down like it's, actual game film.
Oh, yeah. That's what I do. I break down training camp practices like they're the Super Bowl as well. Look, it's the offseason. We need to talk about this. All I'm saying is it looks the same. It looks like the same Trey Lance I've always seen. Some people say it looks a lot different. Last week we had those like grainy, slow motion videos of just him from the waist up, and it looked good. But this one, there's just 2 throws, and you see the whole body. And to me, it looked exactly the same as the past. And that's fine. I mean, I'm a little skeptical that he can overhaul his delivery. I mean, he's in his 20s. It's not easy to do. And all I'm seeing is a guy who basically throws with his arm. Like, his legs don't really help him very much in the process. In fact, you could argue they get in the way a little bit, but he's so gifted and big and strong that he can sling that rock around. He's been doing it his whole life. I grew up with a professional baseball player, Tyson Ross. I don't know if you know who Tyson Ross is. He was a starter for the Padres. He was an all-star in 2014. He was a second-round pick. I mean, he's very, very gifted. 6'5", 245 pounds, bigger than Trey. Also, basically just threw with his arm. Had a low 3/4 release, had a very short stride, and he could throw 96 miles an hour with his arm. Like, no one could tell him anything. But eventually, he blew out his shoulder, and that was it. And I think the thing with Trey, what I'm most concerned about is the arm fatigue thing. They've talked about this. The arm fatigue comes from being an arm thrower, and he throws hard too. It's not just that he's throwing like Steve Young, like he's placing the ball. He's throwing it really hard, and he's not really using his legs. So I think long term it's gonna hurt him, like literally. So I think that's why he's trying to fix it.
49ers daddy watching on YouTube says Trey's throwing motion looks better and his knees bent on the release. Here's the thing.
All right.
That I feel
beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And you tell me what you see.
It's not about what Trey looks like on one throw in one video. What matters is, can he consistently get the ball where it needs to go? And maybe more than that, what matters is, can he convince the 49ers that he can consistently deliver the ball on time and in a location where guys can run after the catch? That's the big thing. Like, I can hit my 7-iron 180 yards if I hit it perfectly. You know how many times I hit it perfectly? Like 1 out of 10 if I'm lucky. So if Trey Lance looks good in one throw on one video or looks bad on one throw on one video, it doesn't matter. The bigger picture is what matters.
Absolutely. And the big picture to me is he still looks like he's throwing the same. And the Niners have this choice now. It's like, do we continue to try to revamp Trey Lance's throwing motion, or do we go with Brock Purdy, who actually has good throwing mechanics? That's the thing about Brock Purdy. He does everything correctly. He transfers his weight correctly. He uses his lower body right. Like Jimmy didn't. People talk about his quick release. He would stand on his back foot, not transfer his weight at all, and just throw little 10-yard passes with no weight transfer. I hated that. Like, Trey is like the opposite. He's really muscling up, and it's kind of like my friend Tyson, not really using his lower body. If he could learn to like just let his legs do the work for him, he wouldn't have to work so hard to throw it hard. Brock Purdy gets it. But the thing with Brock Purdy is what is his freaking elbow going to look like in 6 months? Is it going to be a noodle, or is it going to be even better? It's possible he'll be even better when he comes back, and this guy will be their guy. But Trey, I don't know. It's just, I'm starting to, this is year 3, and I'm starting to feel like, man, this is how you throw. Just like most guys, you have a motion that you've been doing since you're a kid. You're probably not going to change that. And he doesn't have to apologize for that. He just has to perfect, like Jalen Hurts, I guess, had this issue. And if you watch Jalen Hurts, he's a little bit better at having like a bent front knee when his left leg hits the ground. But by the time he releases the ball, that leg is pretty straight. So I think he's been like working on it, and it's like something that he can improve on, and he can probably continue to improve on. But you're not going to just change it overnight.
Well, that's the other thing too, is like people are like looking for everything. Is his arm extended when he's throwing? Is his knee? You don't have to fix everything. In one off.
Yeah.
If you can be a little bit better in one area for this year while you're rehabbing a major ankle injury that required 2 surgeries, that's progress too. That's part of it too, right? Can he show the 49ers that he's making progress? He talked, I think it was with Rich Eisen, about how he has a better idea now of what the 49ers are asking of him, of what they want to see from him. And so maybe he, like I said, if he can spend this whole offseason, now that he's actually mobile and moving around, working on those things, and he can show them in this little window that he has improved those things, that could go a long way.
I agree. And I think if there's one thing he can take away from working out with Patrick Mahomes, I want him to hear this. I was going to say, if there's one thing he can take away from working out with Patrick Mahomes, it might be that, Mahomes has a cannon, but when I watch Mahomes, he's a guy who doesn't throw hard. He looks like he's trying to throw a pillow, like he's in a pillow fight and he's trying to throw the pillow across the room. Like, he's very controlled. He's very good with ball placement. And like, Trey is really, I feel like he's still caught up in throwing it hard. And Steve Young, who was my favorite quarterback of all time, didn't throw it hard. He really, really had soft placement. And I think Trey can learn, like, you don't have to throw it hard, man. You can take it off. Mahomes does. And if he can learn to have that kind of control with his arm, he'll be extremely successful and he won't have arm fatigue.
That's going to be the narrative now, though. If Trey comes out and looks better, it's all going to be due to Patrick Mahomes.
Absolutely.
Mahomes fix him up because Mahomes is so great now. We have to make him even greater. That not only is he, one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen, he's also fixing other quarterbacks in the offseason.
He's a quarterback coach now. Yeah, I mean, he's doing things that Kyle Shanahan can't do. I think it's genius that Patrick Mahomes, I don't know if he invited Trey Lance in or he just said, hey, yes, please come here and let's take a picture, because it looks like he's, doing for Lance what the Niners won't even do. The Niners are like, I don't want to be in the same room as you. And Patrick's like, hey, yeah, he can be in my Instagram story. He's a cool guy.
I'm going to be fascinated to see. I hope that somebody asks Mahomes about the whole thing. I mean, not that he's going to badmouth Trey Lance, because that's just not how Patrick Mahomes rolls. But I'm convinced that it's going to be Trey Lance is working out with Patrick Mahomes. He learned the secrets. Meanwhile, Patrick Mahomes, who, by the way, has one of the most unconventional throwing motions we've ever seen, because he seemingly changes it whenever the hell he wants to and still puts the ball wherever the hell he wants.
I mean, he looks like he could almost play quarterback left-handed. He's so good. And so, yeah, I mean, but the thing is, if you watch him in the pocket, when he has time, he throws with really good mechanics. It's just that he can throw really well without good mechanics. I don't think that Trey's that guy. Like, I don't think Trey's the kind of guy. He can't just look at Mahomes and be like, yeah, I can do all that. No. Think of yourself as Cam Newton. You need to be throwing with proper mechanics every time. If you don't, you're going to be completing 58% of your throws at best. Right? Like, that's you, Trey. You're not Patrick Mahomes. So, I mean, these mechanics things are very important for Trey. And I'm just glad that he's putting in the work in the offseason, because it's going to take a lot of time. They say 10,000 reps, stuff like, it's going to take a long time.
Jesse Naylor, shout out to him watching on YouTube, says Trey Lance's rehab strength and conditioning coach is Patrick Mahomes' coach. That's how it happened. Oh, I'm sure we're gonna get all the details. We'll get all.
You're telling me Kyle Shanahan didn't set this? Jed York didn't set this up? I'm freaking shocked.
What's Brian Greasy doing, by the way? Why? Let's get Brian Greasy out to some of these things here. They could do it without it popping up on social media. I'm sure
He's developing Brock Purdy. He's developing Brock Purdy. Yeah, who had needed no development.
I think that people have an idea of what a quarterback is supposed to throw like. And because Trey doesn't throw like that, I feel like sometimes they're making a bigger issue out of his throwing motion than I think it is. I don't think it's that massive of a problem for him. I really don't.
Well, I mean, it's just the fact that, he's had some accuracy issues early in his career, and there's been this reports of arm fatigue. So then you just look at his throwing motion and be like, okay, well, what's wrong? Well, you can point to this and this and this. If he was completing 70% of his throws and had no arm fatigue, no one would care how he was throwing. But it might be an issue given the statistics and the reports. So I'm just saying, man, like, it looks like a very effortful delivery. Compare it to Justin Herbert, who throws really hard too. Justin Herbert has a very fluid delivery. He uses his legs well. He gets full extension. Doesn't look like he's trying that hard, but he is throwing very hard. Like, Trey he's got that, first of all, his leg locks out, so he's pushed, he kind of releases here. He's got that 3/4 delivery, and then he whips his arm violently across his body and finishes with his arm across his body. I mean, it's all very violent. And it's cool. I mean, that's how my friend Tyson had a very violent delivery. He was a freaking ace, but you worry about long-term longevity with that kind of stuff.
I don't know that I would call it violent. It's definitely, you're right. The arm comes across and it almost bounces back.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yes, it does. It does. It absolutely does. Yeah, I mean, and he throws hard. Like he needs to fix this.
I think that what he would say is the arm fatigue came from the volume of throws.
Sure.
Not like, and what I think he would say is
you throw like that all off season? Hell yeah. I believe it. Right. I believe it.
But what he's going to say is I'm not going to ever throw that much over that period of time again in my career because I'm not going to be preparing for the draft again. So I think that's what he would say in response to your concern.
Fair. Then I guess my only concern would be show me that you can control the ball with that 2x4 up your crotch that you got because you got freaking 2x. Hey man, maybe you need to slow yourself down. Do you remember Rob Nen when we were kids? Okay, Rob Nen, he was a pitcher. He would get in the stretch, he would come set, and as he was transferring his weight, he would actually stop. Remember, he would hit his front leg on the ground to slow his momentum because he threw so freaking hard. Maybe Trey feels he needs to slow his momentum down a little bit. I don't know why he throws this way, but maybe it's what he needs to do. He just needs to prove that he can control the ball because he hasn't proven that he's Patrick Mahomes like that yet.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the question will be too, like, does he get enough opportunities to throw? Because I still think he's working through some stuff in terms of adjusting to the NFL. And he's going to need to get those throws in because he didn't get those in college. And he didn't get those anywhere. He still has yet to make those. So part of me wonders if like he's still kind of learning his own kind of throwing motion and how to place the ball and layer the ball and things like that.
Also, I think it's confusing when you're a young kid and you get drafted number 3 overall. He got drafted because of his arm strength. He got drafted because he went to his pro day during a pandemic and freaking fired the ball all over the field. Like, people were like, oh my God, it's just flying out of his hands. And now what we're telling him is, dude, you're throwing too hard. Stop throwing. Like, take it all. It's like, what are you talking about? That got me drafted. That's why I'm rich and I'm the number 3 pick. It's tough for a professional athlete who's made it this far and made this much money for you to tell him, hey, now do everything opposite. It's like, oh, really? It's tough.
So that's going to be the challenge, is going to be whatever the 49ers haven't seen yet from Lance. Can he provide that this year? And I felt like one of the things that we heard about him coming into the league was he's really smart. He learns the playbook fast. He doesn't make the same mistake twice. He can adjust, that kind of thing. So that's going to be
grinder, loves football, not a diva, all that stuff. All the good things. Yeah.
And so that's going to be put to the test this year because clearly he had to change something. Whatever you want to say that it was, he needed to alter something. Now, can he do that while also rehabbing this injury? I don't know. We're going to find out. I know one person that's pretty skeptical. I shouldn't say person. Kyle Shanahan's cat. Thank you very much for the super chat. Trey is a bust. Not his fault. It's my master's fault. That, of course, would be Kyle Shanahan.
Real quick, my question with Trey is like, did the Niners not see this thing with his lower body on film? Because it seems like throwing gurus could probably see that. And if they didn't see it, how did that happen? And if they did see it, most likely, there must have been a plan, right, to fix this. So what happened to that plan? You're on year 3 and he's working out with Patrick Mahomes. Like, what about your plan to fix something you saw on film? Because I can't imagine you traded up to number 3, drafted this guy, and were surprised in training camp, like, oh, you know what? He actually is just an arm thrower. And like, that's going to lead to problems. Like, right. Yeah, I'm sure you could have seen that.
From what Kyle has said, they kind of look at that as like, hey, that's your job to fix during the offseason. And because we don't.
What about your evaluation, though? When you traded up for this guy, what did you say? What did you write?
Right. That's fair. But Kyle has kind of talked about like adjustments to your mechanics and stuff. That's on you in the off season. Because once we get rolling in training camp, like we're going, we have stuff to do. We can't stop and work on that stuff. That's the impression that I've got.
I love thinking like Kyle selling that to Jed. Hey, we're going to trade 3 first-round picks for this kid, Trey. Look, his mechanics are a little bit of a mess. Big, strong kid, been throwing with his arm all his life. We want to teach him to use his lower body. We have no plan to teach him how to use his lower body. That's going to be on him. It's really critical for him to succeed. We can't do that for him, but we think he might be able to do it for himself. What do you think? Jed's like, I like it. I like it.
Jed's like, just make the NFC title game so I could sell playoff tickets, please.
Fair enough. But too long, didn't listen. Just make the NFC title game. Thanks.
Right. And if you don't, then we'll talk. Game Time Watching on YouTube says Trey's fatigue came from 2 years straight, he said, like we talked about. Thomas Moore says, did you see that Trey has removed the dip in his motion? I do think that was something that jumped out a little bit to me. If you go look at his pro day throws, he kind of dips down and then he bounces up. He gets taller as he's releasing the ball. It seems like in these videos where we could actually see his lower body that he's not doing that. But again, I don't know if that's a one-time thing or if it's actually going to stick.
The way I saw it, and you could disagree, is in the past, he would have a pretty low crouch when he was when he was dropping back. And then he would transfer to a straight leg, and you could see this. I mean, his head would pop up. Now he's not crouching as low when he drops back. And so when he transferred to a straight leg, it doesn't seem as drastic. But what I would say is, man, bend that front leg, baby. Bend that front leg, baby, because what you're doing when you extend the leg is you're basically stopping the momentum that you're creating with your lower body. The whole point is to use your whole body, not just your upper body. Creating momentum, you stop the momentum by extending your leg. Extend it later, because as soon as you extend the leg, your lower body's done and your arm is doing all the work. And man, your arm is strong, but let your body do the work for you, baby. Let your body do the work.
What about this? I don't know if it's fear or fire. I'm going to go with fire. Says, I looked up different quarterbacks after your analysis video, Grant, and found that both Drew Brees and Steve Young have the leg lock thing going on.
I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it, but I'll go check it out. I highly doubt it.
Well, Steve Young, I mean,
everyone locks their leg eventually. You do it like Jalen Hurts does it when the ball's released. Ideally, you do it a little after the ball's released. But if you're doing it before the ball's even at your ear, man, the rest is your own. And again, Steve Young didn't throw very hard, so I don't think it led to arm fatigue, and he actually had great ball control. But I'm guessing Steve Young had great mechanics too, because Bill Walsh coached him. I'd love to go back and check it myself. But thank you, Fire the Great.
Well, Steve Young was really raw as a thrower when he first started. If you his biography, I think it's called Beyond the Spiral or Inside the Spiral, something to do with the spiral. It's an awesome thing. But he talked about literally how much work he put in to throwing the ball, especially because
easy.
One of his college coaches did not want him to be a quarterback just
because he was
left-handed.
LaVelle Edwards. So, yeah, I did a story about left-handed quarterbacks like 6-7 years ago. I interviewed him about it, interviewed Chris Sims about it. They were all really interested. I mean, left-handed quarterbacks have a whole story because most coaches are just kind of lazy and they don't want to like redraw their whole. You have to redraw basically your entire playbook for the left-handed quarterback. They're like, nah, I don't want to do that. So, Steve, be a safety.
Well, yeah. Trey was recruited as a safety by some schools, so maybe that's
right.
Coaches don't want to be doing that kind of stuff.
No,
I think Tua is the only lefty in the NFL. I can't think of another one.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure he's the only one, and there hasn't been one other than him for like years. I don't know. They went extinct.
I just feel like there's in high school, if you're a lefty and you can throw, there's so much pressure from the baseball coach to come play baseball. And I think that the football coach is kind of indifferent. He's like, you know what? Yeah, you should probably go play baseball. You can make a lot of money over there.
Yeah, right. Watching on YouTube says Rob and Grant have the same barber.
My barber is Javon, the barber in Fruitvale in Oakland. Shout out Javon. He does a great job. I got to go tomorrow. It's been about 3 weeks.
I don't know my barber's name. Why would I know my barber's name? I go to whoever's open.
Oh, man, I'm loyal to Javon.
I don't have
only Javon.
We do live on opposite sides of the country, so I highly doubt that the same person is cutting our hair.